Hey guys, what's going on? Mike Wagner checking in because I know I've done this case study in the past, but we've since sold this property, and so I wanted to do an updated case study for you. This is a property, Bloomfield Mini Storage, that I bought at the end, I think November of 2014. So 2015 was kind of our first year of full operations, and I thought I'd run through it very quickly for you so you can see how this one played out for us. Essentially what it was when we bought it, it was 2 acres and it had four buildings. As you can see here, there's three long storage buildings, and right here is one small building at the front. There's approximately 13,500 feet in storage, and then this office building in the front. Now, physically, it was full to the brim. We didn't have any units, but financially, it was performing at about 57%, or so I was told when I got in there and bought it, as is often the case. um, some of those folks mysteriously disappeared between overnight when I bought it. And so we were really closer to 45%, give or take, if my memory serves me correct. And it was a decent market, a warm market. Rates were super low on site. There was a new facility down the road. So if I'm being honest, I wasn't 100% gung ho on this. I kind of hemmed and hawed on it because one, I didn't know enough about the real market rate. I was letting what the current owner was charging kind of sour my view on the property. Plus, that new one down the road had me a little concerned. Um, but I'll talk about how that kind of played out here in a little bit. Um, how did I find it? That's a great question. And the answer is, and don't do what I did. I sent direct mail. You can do that part. But when envelopes get returned to you as undeliverable, don't throw them aside the way I did and say, oh, I shouldn't mail to them anymore. Those are the leads that no one else can get a hold of either. So you should chase those harder than any other lead. And after three or four return letters, through dumb luck, I guess it was serendipity, I was out on a run. This property was only like 6 or 7 miles from where I lived at the time. So I ran past the place and I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to go inside. And I went in and talked to them. The lady behind the desk didn't own the place, but she was nice enough to give me the cell phone number of the gentleman who did. When I called him, I found out that he actually didn't own it either. He was in the process of buying it and he had already taken over management. So, I was deflated. I thought he beat me to the punch, and there it is. But long story short, I mentioned to him, hey, I was honest. I said, listen, I wanted to buy this place. You beat me to it. Congratulations. Let me know if I can ever help you. We got to talking, developed some rapport, and essentially I called him every month and just said, hey, do you own it yet? And when you do own it, do you want to sell it to me? And ultimately, it took him a long time to get to closing because of a bunch of nonsense. But he and I, after he bought it, he decided he didn't want to learn the industry, and so he flipped it to me for a quick profit. I don't know exactly how much because of the way the deal was structured, but I think he made $50,000 or $60,000 on me, which is fine because I still got it at a price that was fair to me. I don't come from a scarcity mindset where um, he doesn't deserve it for owning it for a day. He did deserve it because he found it before I did. So take that for what it's worth. To buy the property, we got it under contract for 350. We put immediately a fence and a new parking lot in the 1 acre of grass that came with it. And we had some closing costs, and so we were looking at a total purchase price of around $420,000 when you include the renovations and closing costs. I think we went over a little bit on our fence and lot, so I might have been in for a little bit more than this, but plus or minus 5 or 10 grand. Um, and so all in, call it 420, 425. Fast forward 4 years later, this is what the property looks like now. There's still the office building, of course, and we added three new buildings. Very quickly after buying it, I want to say less than a year, we were able to get these ones filled up. And so we sought to expand. We also converted a couple apartments in this front area to um, uh, climate controlled. I shouldn't say climate controlled. It wasn't air conditioned, but it was heated storage because I'm not a landlord anymore and I wanted nothing to do with the apartments that were here. So that's what we did. And then each year thereafter, we added another building. And this is what that looked like from a numbers standpoint, right? 2015 was going to be our first full year. So when we purchased it, the gross revenue based on his rents was $88,350, of which we suspected we could collect about $57,000. This was based on our ramp up projections of moving a couple people in each month, etc. And we had our projected expenses, and I anticipated a net operating income after one full year of $31,000. Now, if you know how we value these things, we multiply that by, give or take, 10 to get a value. So that's 310. That means based on an income valuation approach, after 1 year of my sweat and tears, it was only going to be worth 310. And you remember we were in for 420 plus. So it was like, well, Mike, why would you even do that? And as the rest of the story plays out here, I think it'll become clear why. We never anticipate making money in the first 12 to 24 months. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we make considerable money and cash flow prior to it, that timeline, that 12 to 24 month projection. But I rather be pleasantly surprised than unpleasantly surprised. So I tend to be very conservative in my projections, and that's what you'll see play out in these numbers. Our actual 2015 projections, instead of collecting 57 grand, as you see we projected, we collected 72,000. Our expenses were right about in line with what we expected. So we made $12,000 more than we thought we were going to in net operating income. Now, still, you'll see, oops, sorry about that. Let me back up. You'll see this $43,000 in NOI only puts us at a value conservatively of $430,000, about what we paid. Now, things start to get interesting in 16. These are our projections and our actual. I'll let you look through it. You can pause if you want to really digest these numbers, but I'm going to roll through quickly to avoid boring anybody. In our second full year of operation, we collected just short of $100,000, $97,809. Our expenses were again in line with what we projected, right around 30 grand. And so that means our NOI was now $68,000. NOI of 10 gives us a value of 680 grand. Excuse my phone ringing there. Quickly into 2017, again, I'm sorry, I keep doing that to you. Our collected rent, $111,000. Expenses held neutral. We run a pretty lean operation using our call center and our online management. So generally speaking, you're going to see these expenses run a little higher. But we run a very streamlined, keep it simple model, and that keeps us down in the 25 to 28% for our expenses. When all said and done, we were at 80,000 in NOI. Now, our last full year, 2018, things continued to improve. We raised rents considerably. We stayed full. Expenses went up because we had a larger property to care for, higher property taxes, higher snow plowing, those types of things. Long story short, $106,000 in net operating income. And I sold this in the April of 2019. I sold this property at an 8 cap. So if you do the math on that, it's a 12.5 times this number, ballpark. It's not an exact science, but we sold the property for $1.325 million. You may have seen, or you're welcome to go check out. Maybe I'll even try to play it for you. A video from YouTube showing kind of how that closing played out. But in summary, here we go. Bought in November 2014 for $420-ish. We added a building, 3,200 square feet, 1 year later, using private money. Then another year after that, we did 2,600 square feet and converted those 2 apartments to heated storage. That was November of 16. And then at that point, we refinanced with a bank. I pulled out $600K total to pay off my partner, pay off my private money, and restructure everything. We also pulled enough money out to fund our third and final round of expansion. So we got up to 24,000 square feet or so. And then, like I said, we sold this in April of 2019 for $1.325 million. Not a bad payday for 4 years. There's a little more to it. I'm going to try to click this link. If not, you guys can certainly see the URL there that you can put into your browser and check, because this may or may not work depending on how my screen capture goes, but I'm going to try it. Hey guys, what's going on? I am super excited to show this with you today, and I want to start by saying I really hope this doesn't come across as arrogant or immodest or that I'm bragging or anything like this. really, I am sharing this with you because I hope that you find it inspiring. As you know, storage has changed my world, and I'm trying to pay it forward by sharing what I know to the world at large so that it can hopefully change their world as well if that's what they're looking for. So, that said, today is an awesome day. You can see here on my screen this check for $425,000. We sold our Bloomfield mini storage facility. And if that weren't good enough, that's just the first piece of the puzzle. Hopefully you can see this when I flip over here. This is the closing statement. You can see we sold this property for $1.325 million. If you remember back to any previous videos, we bought it for about $360. Did some improvements and some expansion, so we were all in for a total of around 600, 6.25, somewhere in there. So we just about doubled our money on this property relative to sale price versus our investment. Now that check for $425,000 might seem a little light, and the reason is, if you can see here highlighted, there's 3 line items that say $108,333.33, and those represent 3 townhouses that I took in trade. The buyer of this storage facility gave me $1 million in cash, as well as the 3 townhouses. So after we paid our mortgage off and all that stuff, we had that check you just saw for $425, and I've got these 3 townhouses. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I am not interested in being a landlord anymore. That was my old world, and it's the one I use storage to escape. So I have no interest in owning these properties long term. I'm actually meeting my real estate agent today to list them and sell them. They're worth anywhere between $115 and $125 a piece. You can see I only credited the $108 for each one because there's going to be sales commissions and costs and just my time invested into getting these sold over the next couple months. So there's a little bit of a discount there to make it worth my while. That being said, when you combine that $325 in townhouses with the check you just saw for $425, we're at $750,000 in equity that we created and cashed out over the 4.5 years we owned it. And then on top of that, we have roughly $40,000 to $50,000 a year for those same 4.5 years in cash flow. So adding all that together, we're somewhere in the $900,000 to $925,000 range for total profit on this property over the 4.5 years. So again, I share that with you, 1, because I'm very excited, but 2, to inspire you and show you exactly what is possible in this storage game. Happy to answer any questions you have. Pop them into the comments below, and I will certainly do my best to respond as quickly as I'm able. All right, guys, till next time, be good.